What's up, guys? Today we're talking about Quinn Ewers, the Texas Longhorns quarterback that's entering a pivotal year for his 2025 NFL draft stock. It's a pivotal year for Texas. We're going to talk through his background, how he got here, his scouting report, what he does well, and then we're going to project him forward and see, is he the QB1 in the 2025 NFL draft? Stay with us through the intro. We'll catch you on the other side. All right. Today we are talking through Quinn Ewers, as I said, and Quinn Ewers is a polarizing prospect. I've seen him as low as like QB10 behind guys like Graham Mertz. I've seen him as high as QB1. So we're going to talk through exactly why that might be the case and how he got to this point. So number one thing, we're going to talk through our positional ranking. So here at the Devy Royale, we do have Devy rankings. We have him as our QB3 at this moment. I believe he's QB4 in our Devy guide. So 3 to 4, somewhere around there. He's in the 2025 class. I don't think that there's a chance that he goes back to school after this year, but 6'2", 205. When you see his weight listed, I think you're going to start to see people questioning, is he big enough? Because he was listed at like 190, but he's put on a lot of good weight. He's looking like he's filling out his frame, which is exactly what we wanted. As far as background goes, so obviously his path to Texas, and Texas fans, Ohio State fans, if you're watching this, I'm sure you know this, but not everyone does. So in August of 2021, Quinn Ewers enrolled at Ohio State. He took an NIL deal. He was the backup. He didn't really get any run. Everyone kind of assumed that this was a short-term thing, but there was a chance that he stayed behind the success of CJ Stroud. By December, he had already transferred to Texas. For those that don't know as well, he comes in as the top overall recruit as a quarterback. I believe one of the best ever. He had a perfect 1.0000 as a recruit from 24/7 Sports. So he was a highly, highly touted high school prospect. A lot of really good things. He had zip on his ball as early as high school. We'll talk through all of his strengths and where some of those things are still apparent on the film, and where maybe we may have been projecting a little bit too much, but we'll get into it for sure. 2023 stats. So 272 completions out of 394 attempts, 69%, 3,479 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Took care of the football, threw for a lot of yards. I know the Steve Sarkisian Texas offense makes it friendly for quarterbacks, and I think that, as I said, when we get into like what he does well, that's very apparent. And having Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell certainly don't hurt that. And Jordan Whittington, for what it's worth, since he got drafted. I don't know how Texas fans really feel about Jordan Whittington, but really a stud group around him. Jatavian Sanders as well, Jonathan Brooks. Like, there were NFL players around him. But we're not going to see anything different in 2024 because there are still NFL players around him. It's Texas. Of course there are. So a really good year. Like, improved in a lot of different areas from that redshirt freshman year, essentially. I think that he improved his accuracy. There are things that on his first year tape, it wasn't great. Outside of maybe the Alabama game, there was a lot of good in that game, but this last year there was a lot of good film. Let's just say that. PFF stuff. So his passing grade 85.6, turnover worthy plays 1.7%, pressure to sack percentage 25.2%. Not great. Don't love to see that. And then adjusted completion percentage up 76.3%, which is a good mark. None of this stuff is really elite. The turnover worthy play percentage is really good. He takes care of the football, despite, I think, what the perception around Quinn Ewers is that he's like a gunslinger that puts the ball in harm's way. He does have a lot of tip balls. Sometimes I do question the 6'2" nature of what he's listed at, but because of the tip balls, but tip balls are an eyes thing. It's not necessarily a height thing. So that's something we'll talk about here shortly. So scouting report. So arm talent is crazy. That's why he was the number one prospect or high school recruit in his class, and the number one recruit in a long time. The arm pops, the ball zips off of his hand. He was getting Patrick Mahomes comparisons because of how natural of a thrower he is. He throws a very natural spiral. His release is really quick. It's very strange, I guess. It's not a normal release, but it's quick. And so I think a lot of that is going to work well in his favor as we get to the 2025 NFL draft. I talked about the accuracy, but this kid was very accurate if we're just talking 0 to 20 and really 25. Um, I'll talk about some charting numbers as we get in here. I did chart. I don't remember how many games off the top of my head, but I'll look up the stats as we get into it. But he was an accurate quarterback, pinpoint accurate. I think there's times where he gets in a rhythm, and especially in like big games. He's a big game player. He's kind of like Adonai Mitchell in that way, but he just gets into these rhythms where he is not missing throws. It's sure some of the receivers would drop the ball here and there, but there's a lot of really, really good stuff as far as accuracy and ball placement goes. He's supremely accurate. Poise. This is an interesting one because I don't think that this is a thing that people talk about with Quinn Ewers, but in the pocket, you see him do subtle movements that I think really help him to get the ball off. Now, I did talk about that pressure to sack percentage. I think that that can be a problem, but I also think that there's something to some of these weaknesses that we talk about that cause those pressure to sack numbers being so high. So let's just get into it. The footwork is bad. The footwork has been bad since he got there. Quinn Ewers has, because of the supreme arm talent and the ability to just sling it off of whatever platform, footwork has never been a thing for him. And you kind of see him when he gets, out of sorts or pushed off his actual pocket, his footwork just is atrocious. And sometimes he can be accurate, but at the NFL level, and we saw a little bit with Bryce Young last year. Bryce Young wasn't a really pinpoint accurate with his footwork type of guy. And we saw him struggle because a lot of the NFL stuff is timing. 1, 2, 3, you have to get the ball out. Quinn Ewers can do that stuff. I want to see Texas kind of evolve this offense a little bit because, to be completely honest, I wasn't a huge fan of watching the Texas offense because you're throwing screens a ton and you're throwing pretty simple route concepts, right? And I think that was designed to kind of ease Quinn Ewers into everything. But we have to evolve, and we have to see more from this offense for Quinn Ewers to kind of button up that footwork. Some of it is still on him. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot that he needs to work on as far as his feet go. But I think if he buttons up his footwork, we're talking about an already super accurate dude. If he can button up his footwork and just be accurate like that all the time, we're talking about an insanely accurate dude and a guy that could go number 1 overall in a draft. Working to his third and fourth reads. So this is something that I think when you watch the Texas offense, he's consistently going 1, 2, and then he gets moved off his spot. I think naturally in this offense, that is kind of a thing that happens. However, I know Sark has actually talked about, his progression and getting to the third and fourth reads in his progression. And I think that that's a big step that we have to see this year. I think that he can do it because I think he is a very smart quarterback. One thing I didn't put on the positives, but it certainly is, this kid throws with timing and anticipation consistently. There are routes where it's like an out-breaking route, and he's throwing before the wide receiver breaks consistently because he knows the offense. He was certainly more comfortable in the offense, but when you're able to throw with the anticipation in college, that's a big thing. We don't see that with a lot of prospects. We see it on occasion for a lot of guys, but like Quinn Ewers is doing this consistently. It's only on the short stuff for the most part, but there are times where he throws over the middle with anticipation, and that's a big thing. So I think that the next step in his football IQ and getting him to see the field would be just do that on your third and fourth reads. Now, okay, we've got 1 and 2 down. Do it on your third and fourth, and then we can talk a little bit. And then what everyone likes to cite on social media, and they see the clips of Xavier Worthy running a go route and the ball being like 10 yards behind or 10 yards in front. Quinn Ewers' deep ball is just not very accurate. And for a guy with his arm, which he has an arm, people try to like put it on him not having arm strength. That's not the case. He has as much zip as you could probably imagine, but there's a timing and like air problem where he's putting too much air onto the ball or he doesn't get enough air onto the ball. And so he really needs to work on this deep ball. I do think that when we talk about the Texas quarterback room, Arch Manning probably has a better deep ball than him right now. Do you win games in college football or the NFL off of strictly deep balls, not many offenses do. I know that air raid is a thing, but that's not an offense that will work, especially against SEC opponents, which we'll talk about here shortly. This is like they tailor the offense to his strengths. When he has to throw a deep ball, though, he needs to be able to complete them. And we've seen it in spurts. There was the one against Alabama early last season to Xavier Worthy that was like a 60-yard moonshot. And like that was good timing. I just think there was a struggle to get on the same page on those like 30+ yard throws. Outside of that, though, super accurate. So I'm not totally concerned with this. I think there's a way to win in the NFL, even with an inconsistent deep ball. There are a few quarterbacks that just got drafted that I think could classify as an inaccurate deep ball thrower for the most part. So I don't think that that's a huge issue for Quinn Ewers, but it's worth mentioning because you're going to see it all the time for sure. All right. As I do this, so I put grades on players for those who haven't seen this channel. So right now I have Quinn Ewers at 75.5. That would be an NFL starter grade. I think when you start to project forward and what he can be, I think you're looking at a player who, now this is just on this last year film. I think if he came out, he's probably a day 2 pick because of the strength of the 2024 class. But if he comes out in this like kind of weak 2025 class, I think we're looking at a guy who is certainly going to get first round consideration unless there's just a catastrophic failure this year. I don't think that that's going to happen, but there is some pressure there for him with Arch Manning there. I think that there's certainly pressure from boosters, pressure from maybe a coaching staff, but Steve Sarkisian loves Quinn Ewers. He is always back Quinn Ewers, said that's his quarterback. So I don't see a catastrophic event happening kind of in the mold of Spencer Rattler. I just don't see that. I think Quinn Ewers has a better makeup, and I don't think he would let that happen. So right now, 75.5. Looking pretty good. I think there's a very good chance that he could improve on that and be in that like quality NFL starter. I don't think we're getting to Pro Bowl. I'm pretty stingy with my grades, to be completely honest. It's very, very hard to get up into those, at least the top 2, but also the top 3. So, okay. And then we're going to talk through the schedule. So this year they get Colorado State to open the year. Big game at Michigan, game 2. That's a huge game versus UTSA, versus Louisiana Monroe, versus Mississippi State, at Oklahoma, always a big game, versus Georgia. That's another big test for Quinn Ewers, where that Georgia defense is going to be good once again, as it always is. So it's going to be a test for him. At Vanderbilt, versus Florida, at Arkansas, versus Kentucky, at Texas A&M. So Quinn Ewers has his fair share of problems on this schedule, but that's what makes great quarterbacks. And we haven't seen Quinn Ewers struggle in games that are considered high profile, right? Like the 2 Alabama games. I think if he stays healthy, I think Texas beats Alabama last year. And so I think we're talking about a whole different mindset of what he is as a prospect if he's beaten Alabama 2 years in a row. So I am excited to see that early season test for him, because I think that could be a good tell of, have we made that, have we taken that next step, right? I think that he has all the capability to do so, but we're going to find out, right? I want to know where you guys have Quinn Ewers. Where does he rank for you? This is, like I said, he's a very polarizing prospect. I do think that as this season goes on, people are going to nitpick a lot of the things, but I like, personally, when I grade these players, I'd like to say, well, what can they do well? How can I use them to their best ability? I know with quarterback play, it's a little bit different than that, but there's just so much upside with what Quinn Ewers can be. I think this Texas football team should be in the top 5. I know they lost a lot of talent, but truly a very well-coached football team. I think that this program is in a perfect spot to compete in the SEC already. I think that there's a chance that they get through those Michigan and Georgia games unscathed, and they are walking into the college football playoff, the 12-teamer. So of course they should be, but like, I think they're looking at maybe a 1 through 4 seed when all is said and done. But I want to know where Quinn Ewers ranks for you. I know a lot of people are probably going to be lower. That 75.5 is tied for my QB1 with Carson Beck. So I have them together at the top right now with guys that have to catch up to them. And I think that that's kind of where we're at with Quinn Ewers. So before we go, I do want to mention our Patreon, patreon.com/the Devy Royale. It's over there as well. But we have a 2024 Devy draft guide. I mentioned that at the top of the show with rankings over 100 players. We got scouting reports, strength and weaknesses. You could read all about Quinn Ewers and all the other quarterbacks in the 2025 class, the 2026 class, and the 2027 class if they made our rankings. We're going to be adding to this. There are going to be 3 updates throughout the year, as well as over on the Patreon, you get access to our Discord. You get unlimited access to our Substack. It's just $5 a month. You can, if you find someone who has it, you can ask them, is this good value? And they'll probably tell you yes. So patreon.com/the Devy Royale. We'll be back with some more stuff next week. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you leave a comment. Let me know where you think Quinn Ewers will go, where you have him ranked, what you think of Quinn Ewers. Thank you guys for watching. We'll catch you next time.